Welcome to another episode of the Coffee Conversation Show, powered by the Emerging India Forum TIF, our tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Today's theme topic is balancing acts, law, rights, and investment banking. We have with us our guest speaker, Vignesh Ram Hariharan. He is the Chief of Staff and Legal Counsel at Novistra Capital and has experience in merger and acquisition, corporate law, life insurance. Vignesh brings a wealth of knowledge to the table. So, Vignesh, I am Amirr Virani, your host and tech evangelist at Prime Infotech Solution. So, welcome to this episode of Coffee Conversation, Vignesh.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so Vignesh, before I begin, I just want to explain to you the format of this conversation. We have three rounds. First round is about your professional journey. Second is about your personal journey. And third is a surprise round, that is a rapid fire round. So, so let's begin, Vignesh. My first question will be, Vignesh, how has your journey been as a legal counsel till date?
I'd say it's been very rewarding because when you first envision your life as a lawyer, when you envision anyone as a lawyer, you first think of the black coat, going to court, arguing in front of the court, and that's the basic idea of a layman or like a kid who wants to join law, right? But once you complete your degree of law and you're into the legal profession, you understand the varied aspects in which you can apply the law. And I think by the time I was moving out of law school, I was fairly clear that I didn't want to litigate. So I decided that I wanted to move into being a corporate lawyer, which meant I either joined a law firm or I became an in-house counsel. And luckily, I had a great mentor during my final internship at law school, who then absorbed me into the company that I first started working with, which is Exide. And I just enjoyed the entire idea of being a business partner and not just looking at the law as is a framework of legal acumen that you always need to think about, you need to litigate about, but rather look at the law as a way to understand and empower business, right? And I think my journey as an in-house counsel has always been about how to improve yourself as a business partner and how businesses can become better in terms of compliance, in terms of legal standards, and other things. So I'd say very, very rewarding as from a layman who didn't understand what the law was to now where I am. I think the experience has been tremendous.
That's interesting to know. Okay, you knew before, after completing your law, where you want to continue yourself as in. That's very good. So continue conversation, Vignesh. You have worked in mergers and acquisitions. So describe your experience of that one project where you had worked on this M&A thing. What are the key things from the corporate world you had to focus on, and how did you manage with the law firm to bring about a consensus and close the deal at the earliest?
Right. Very brings back a lot of memories because it was the first deal that I did, which was at HGS. So in 2020 when I started consulting for HGS and then I joined them as a full-time employee later, we'd started on a project where Hinduja Global Solutions was looking at divesting their healthcare division, basically. And their healthcare division was being run in the US with offshoring in Philippines, Jamaica, and operations in Canada, as well as India. So if you look at it, the deal was a multi-jurisdictional deal, which meant for us to be able to start the diligence process itself, which is basically in-house diligence before even we hire external lawyers. And this is during the initial start of the conversation where buyers just tend to sign NDAs, come to you, offer you an idea that they're interested in buying you or interested in buying out a particular portion of your business. So at that stage itself, luckily, I was able to be part of the business, which meant I was able to negotiate NDAs with regard to with a large chunk of buyers. So if you look at that process itself in terms of starting from the NDA process to the in-house diligence, it involves so many steps of coordination with multiple business teams within the company, and also understanding the legal ramifications of bad diligence, right? I can give you an example of how bad diligence would be like, right? So, for example, uh, AGS had a lot of um, work that they did in the healthcare segment, which is basically providing support to insurance companies, right? So licenses that were available across 40 odd states of the United States has to be procured. That process of making sure those license transfers itself is a tedious task because each and every state has a different set of rules. So it's not just looking at laws within a particular country, it's also about federal and state laws that you need to be mindful of within those particular countries. And this is just the in-house diligence that I'm talking to you about, right? And then from there, it's about hiring the right law firms. So do you go by reputation? Do you go by what your rapport is? Do you go by your past experiences in case you've done deals? Those are all conversations that you had, right? And in between all of this, it's wonderful for me because like I was part of a team within the AGS legal team. It was just me, the general counsel, and one more person within the team that was working on the entire deal. And the value of the deal was a $1.2 billion sale. So it was quite an exciting project to start working on, right? So phase one of in-house diligence to hiring your lawyers, and then coordinating each set of lawyers on all the transactional documents is a very, very tedious task. And I think my experience of it is that I would say I learned a lot about how it's not about knowing the law, it's about applying the law. It's about applying where you about applying how much you can stretch the effects of law to make sure your businesses work, to make sure your deals work. And more than anything, right, I think it's about being organized, because any mergers and acquisitions process or any deal process that you're working on requires you to be extremely organized in terms of making sure the documents are available, making sure you find the right documents, making sure you have the relevant documents, as well as making sure if you don't have documents, how do you cover up those particular circumstances as well, right? So as part of the process, learning how to be that minutely organized leads you to becoming a more successful counsel. And I think by the end of the deal, which was probably 1.5 years of my life, it was an extremely, extremely rewarding deal that I worked on. And I think that experience and working with the team that I was working with shapes a lot of my uh, ethics as well as my diligence with regard to how I approach newer deals wherever I work. So like newer deals at AGS and now the deals that I work at Novista, I think my ethics and diligence comes from that particular deal. And I'm very, very happy that that was the first deal that I started working on. So it has a very special memory in my heart.
That's wonderful. Memories are there for lifetime. That is the saying goes by. So my next question will be, uh, as a legal counsel, you're handling teams which come from various backgrounds, various different law schools. So how do you face the ups and downs and keep them together and see to it that whatever the projects they are working on, they're time bound and executed effectively?
I'll try bifurcating this answer into
Yeah, yeah.
how I operate legal counsel as well as how to like handle external counsels, right? So when you're looking at teams within your company or people within your company, for example, right? I think it's about establishing what the goal of your particular project is. Because more often than not, individual egos or individual issues that come up can always be sorted if you can find the common goal that both parties have to achieve. So, for example, you don't really need to be friends with your colleagues, right? Colleagues tend to have strong opinions. Colleagues tend to be ones who would want to prioritize, let's say, their vertical over your vertical, right? So, for example, more often than not, legal is always seen as the bottleneck. Is always seen as the person who's going to stop business, or is going to be the one who generally like tries to make sure business is very cautious, right? Whereas business wants to be very free. So how do you as a lawyer help in those circumstances? One, I think developing good communication channels and making sure both parties understand that, hey, I am not here to stop you from doing something. I'm here to make sure both of us are in sync when it comes to the business and the ramifications or the consequence of us doing bad business, right? I operate as a lawyer in the exceptions. I don't operate in the norm, right? And you as the businessman needs to, as the business team needs to understand that I'm here to flag issues for you, and I'm here to give you solutions to those flags, to those red flags. I'm here to convert those red flags into green flags. So it's about developing that communication, developing a common goal, which eventually will develop into trust. So any time I move into a new company or anytime I have a new employee or person that I need to speak to, it's about developing trust. And once I have that trust, it's all about making sure you build on that trust and make sure you move forward from there. So that's within your company, right? External counsels, similar principle, except like external counsels, you can hold them accountable much more effectively because you don't have to see them on a day-to-day basis. One, and two is you're there to make sure that you have deliverables. So where in case of employees, there is more subjectivity with regard to the common goal that you're trying to achieve. So even though you may want to achieve, say you want to complete a $1.2 billion deal, there will be subjective parameters in which you would want to work with your teammates, right? Whereas when you're working with external counsel or with external law firms, you have objective deliverables for them to achieve. So even though you may have personal relationships, etc., those deliverables matter. And you sticking to those deliverables and making sure that is achieved will lead you to becoming a far better manager of these external counsels and law firms as an in-house counsel.
That's wonderfully you have explained being on handling the team and handling the external law firm team. Wonderfully you have explained. So continuing conversation, you have, besides legal, you have got experience in marketing, in HR. So what excited you to have experience in marketing and HR?
Okay. This is the question I had. So this is the role that I moved into fairly recently. It's been only about a year or year to year and 2 months since I started the role. So why I chose taking up more responsibility other than just being a legal counsel was for me, I wanted to understand why businesses work the way they do, especially investment banks, right? Because investment banks are the hub of like deal making. So you're looking at mergers, acquisitions, any other transactional related activities, right? So what do investment banks actually look for within their backend is obviously operations, marketing, HR, and legal. So when I was speaking to the managing partner at Novestra during my interview phase, I asked him this question point blank, like, where do you think I have transferable skills from being a lawyer to that of taking over marketing and HR? And his simple response was this: if you're able to cut the bullshit in HR and in your hiring process, in developing processes, and if you're able to cut down the faff when you're talking about marketing, I think that is the most important transferable skill that you need to have. And I thought that was the easiest way for me to get into the job as well. And I think that is the mantra that I follow for marketing and HR, right? So I always find it easy that as a lawyer, it's easier for me to develop process, develop policy, but then implementing that policy requires me to put my lawyer's hat on and always be wary that, okay, if I'm hiring, what am I looking for in a candidate? If I'm looking for someone in a slightly senior role? Are we looking for someone who can mentor people, who can carry out not just the mundane day-to-day tasks, but also can carry more value add? Those are the things that I would look for in a slightly senior role. Whereas if I was to look at someone in a analyst or a slightly lower role, or a lower or a person on the lower hierarchy, I'd probably look at different set of skills, right? All of those things stem from my background as a lawyer, where I understand what is required and what is not required. And that cutting off the excess flesh from the requirement is what makes my skills very useful here. So my experience learning about marketing firms, SEO management, managing like posts, managing different platforms that we use, all of those things has been a wild experience. And I think I can credit myself as well as Novistra for taking a chance on me. And I think we're doing a very, very good job right now in terms of just doing our marketing well and doing our hiring well as well, because we have a fantastic team at Novistra. So that's something I can say I'm very proud of.
I can see that, what do you say, a smile and a, happiness working on marketing and HR, additional hats you're wearing. So many more hats will come to you in future. So I know you will be able to give justice to whatever role, wherever you are. Vignesh, you have worked across different countries like USA, UK. What are the memories you have worked in those countries? Can you share? So, young lawyers who want to work internationally, your experience will help them to focus.
So I would say working abroad would mean for you to understand, at least the most important thing for me is understand culture, right? Culturally fitting into those environments and understanding what uh, is the culture of that organization or the kind of law firms or the people that you work with makes it that much more effective in terms of what you want to achieve. Um, I think when I was working with one of the GCs out in the US, uh, he was from the Midwest, so he's from a very very laid back, excellent general counsel, but one of those people who's very laid back, who's very comfortable talking to you, who just wants to make you have a wonderful time while working. Very hospitable kind of people, compared to, let's say, a New York lawyer who's more aggressive, who wants to get things done, who's more on the nose kind of people, right? So understanding that Midwest lawyers do take their time, and Midwest lawyers also require a sort of like in incentive to be able to do a lot of things. Those are things that can be done by talking sports with them, talking different cultural aspects with them. Those are the ways by which you can crack those people. And when you crack those people, it doesn't matter whether you're not well versed with the law there. It's about you communicating to them your requirement and for them to get your work done. So learning how to manage people is the first thing that you need to learn along with managing culture.
Wow, beautifully answered. Your people buying skills are too good, Vignesh. I'd like to give you a thumbs up for that.
Thank you.
Where,
Thank you.
wherever you are, you will be able to make it. So continue a conversation. I think so. This is relevant. You have been a coordinator for the Center for Human Rights. So tell us something. What got you excited into human rights and during your this college life at Ramaiah College of Law?
So I was always interested in understanding what is the theory behind a lot of the law. So jurisprudence is what we call it, right? So I always look at the jurisprudence behind a large chunk of the laws. So while I am a corporate lawyer by training and by definitely by passion also, I have one side passion which is always to like learn a lot more and be a lot more academic as well. So when I did move from Ramaya to ANU to do my master's, where I learned and honed my skills in human rights law, in comparative constitutional law, and a few other rights-based laws. My prerogative was to make sure that I always don't become unidimensional. So when I was handling the Center of Human Rights as well, right? It was about encouraging people to think about the law not just as a set of rules that guide you. So, for example, the Constitution is not just a set of rules that guide the state, right? It is the ethos of the state. It is the value system that the state wants to espouse to its people, right? So, for you to understand the Constitution not as a plain document that you have to interpret all the time in court, versus utilizing the Constitution as a way to understand a way of life for people, I think that is the envisionment that each part of human right or any human rights document or any constitutional document wants to talk about. So when I was studying at Ramaya, when I was studying at ANU, my core focus with regard to that academic pursuit was to make myself more aware of how the world operates in terms of constitutional and rights-based jurisprudence. And that is what led me to becoming more and more comfortable in explaining to students when I was a professor at Ramaya that this is how you approach the law. You don't approach the law as a form of reading. You approach the law as a form of you taking it as a life lesson. Every day you apply the Constitution. Every day the Constitution gets applied on you. So how do you balance that relationship? So it was all about encouraging students to understand that Constitution isn't a boring, drab subject, because across the world, the way constitutions are taught more often than not, unless you have exceptional professors, which I did, which is probably why I'm able to espouse the Constitution like this, right? The way it's taught is fairly taught like Constitution 1 is about your part 3 and part 4 of the Constitution, and everything else comes into the rest of constitutional law 2. It's taught as two different subjects. It takes your entire year. I think the system sort of forces you to think about it as a subject and not as a piece of art in and of itself. And you have to admire the art behind lawmaking, especially constitutional lawmaking and human rights lawmaking. That's my pursuit as such, to teach whenever I teach. So that's the idea, I think, that I thought would be something that I would espouse.
That's interesting, you. You have got passion for teaching, so many things. Now, my next question, Vignesh, is what is legal risk management in an investment banking?
I think there are three primary risks you need to look at. One would be operational risk, which is risk that is associated with your employees, risk that is associated with your data, with your day-to-day activity. So all of your back-end operational risks are things that you need to look at. The second bit is regulatory and legal risk, right? You need to look at whether you're incorporated correctly, whether you're, in case of any transactional activities that you carry out, are you going to be worried about tax implications? Are you going to be worried about, let's say, cross-border implications with regard to not just tax, but also jurisdictional implications, employment implications? For example, when I was talking to you about the AGS divestment deal, we had a very tough time working with the Philippines Department of Labor, because they had a specific set of rules, guidelines, timelines of a lot of things when we had to apply for HR transference, when we had to apply for let's say labor standard application. So they have OSHC standards, which is operational security hazards standards. These are things that they have a specific guideline of things. So they have a different standard, and each jurisdiction has a different standard, right? So understanding that regulatory and legal risk is a very important facet for you, especially when you're in an investment bank, because you are the ones who are going to be advising your clients with regard to all of these risks. And I think the third risk is with regard to data risk, which is your cybersecurity risk, right? And this is the most, I think, with the DPDA and with like multiple data related acts like the GDPR and so many other things, you are in a world where data can be siphoned off so easily without you knowing it. And the worst part is, more often than not, we are so unaware as customers and consumers with regard to our consent for data that any amount of our data can be procured, can be mined, and can determine patterns around you. So it's very important as an investment bank, especially when it comes to your confidential data with regard to your intellectual property, with regard to a large chunk of your employee data. All of those things are very important protections that you need to keep in mind. So these are broadly three risks that you need to mitigate when it comes to any work, but especially an investment.
That's interesting. So Kim, you have been part of in you debating society. Uh, can you tell us something about this debating society and how did it impact your career?
I mean, before ANU, I have to credit my bachelor's, my undergraduate alma mater, which is Ramaya College of Law. That is where I was introduced to the activity of parliamentary debating, and I carry that forward over to ANU when I moved to Australia as well, right? Uh, One thing I can tell you about the activity is that it is probably the most consequential activity that I've undertaken in law school and in my master's, because it shaped a lot of my worldview. Because uh, I was fairly shy when I came into law school, fairly shy, very studious, stuck to what I had to do in terms of studying and all of that. I think debating is the one activity that made me realize that I could become stronger in the head, more and more potent in the way I respond, and more significant in the way I frame things. I don't think any other activity would have given me so much scope to develop myself as an orator and develop myself as a thinker, because debating, especially parliamentary debating as an activity, teaches you to be one that you think on the spot, because you don't, unlike most other debating activities, parliamentary debating does not afford you the luxury of time, because you generally tend to get the topic of discussion about 15 or 20 minutes before you have to debate and give 8-minute speeches, right? Which means you need to be well read, you need to be prepared, you need to have practiced a lot, and more importantly, you need to think on the spot, right? And for all of these things, you have different skill sets that you are developing. And I think with time, I mean, I started debating as an activity at Ramaya when I was 18, and I think over the years I continued to debate till I finished law school, and did some debating at ANU as well. um, I think I have now at the age of 30 come to appreciate how valuable those years of debating were, because when you are doing that activity, you're solely thinking about the competition, winning prizes, winning prize money, thinking about doing a lot of those things. But after, when you look back, right, I think the memory of the activity is just how wonderful a human being it has made me. And it's not just me boasting about me being a wonderful human being or anything of that sort. It's just that after learning to think critically, I have become more and more critical in the way I analyze a lot of things. So that's why I think debating as an activity, and ANU and Ramya have contributed significantly to it.
That's interesting. Varied interest. Now we come to see uh, technology plays important part. So which how did technology play a part from college life to coming to as a legal counsel, and which technology tools have you used over the years?
Oh, honestly, law school, you only largely learn how to use Excel and a few other things. And obviously, you learn certain subscription-based softwares like Manupatra, SCC Online. You, as law students who may not have access to those things, you learn how to use Indian Qanun. So, like, you make do with what you have at that particular point of time. But once you move into a professional working environment, right, it's about learning how to use tools effectively. And the tools I've probably used are CRM softwares like Notion, Udo, and we use multiple other softwares at Novistra as well for our day-to-day activities. But I think as a council, very important tools would be learning how to use Word effectively. I think more often than not, people think Word is just for you to type things, format, and all of that. I think Word has so many more utilizations that you can think about and use. And the more you are able to understand how Word can be used, especially when you're a corporate lawyer who's redlining contracts, that skill of learning how to use Word is a very important thing. The second thing is, I have used a software previously. I don't remember what it's called now. I've used a software previously called Delta View, which helps in comparing documents and making sure comparisons become easier. Uh, Delta View is a software that I used to use earlier on, but now I've become more comfortable just using Word Compare. But Delta View was exceptional in helping me like compare documents and making sure I had effective red lines for different documents. And which reminds me, I think Delta View is something that I had actually taken from Prime Infotech. So I can tell you that it was something that we had taken up from when I was working with Excite. So interesting enough, this is like
Thank you
a
for remembering.
throwback. It's like a throwback from where we started, kind of thing, right? So yeah, Delta View is excellent. And for me personally, in terms of just managing my workload, I think the softwares that I use are Notion with regard to my personal CRM. So I handle my projects long term and short term on Notion, and it helps me become much more effective in managing time, managing workload. Additionally, we also use certain in-house inbuilt softwares at Novista, which are very useful for our general tracking and stuff like that. So technology has been a boon, definitely.
That's interesting. Uh, Coming from your, uh, because technology, I think, has to be used by all, not only legal counsels, legal professional, law firms, but the way which you have been using technology, and I can see the smile on your face, how it has impacted you, and how you have advanced the usage of right technology. Wherever you have been provided with the right tools, and I hope you will introduce more tools for your legal in-house counsel, legal corporate legal teams. Uh, my last question for your professional journey will be some tips for somebody who wants to join a corporate legal and to become a legal counsel.
Makes me sound very old, but I'm going to rehash, I'm going to steal a bit from my mentor, because this is the first thing she told me when I had started off as a lawyer. I mean, when I started off at Excite, I had a wonderful general counsel by the name of Arpita Sen, who gave me three very important words that I needed to keep in mind when I was if I had to become a solid legal counsel or a solid lawyer, as she called me. She called anyone who wanted to become a good lawyer would be considered a solid lawyer, right? One is being proactive. Any lawyer worth their salt needs to learn every day, needs to proactively learn in terms of just being open to information from everywhere. Two, most lawyers tend to operate, especially in-house counsels, tend to operate on a monotonous schedule where they think that it's just about going to work, getting those contracts sorted, making sure those contracts are reviewed, you send back your legal comments, right? I think proactive lawyers or the lawyers who spend more time becoming better are the ones who proactively reach out to the business, ask them their requirements, understand where the business comes from, where are the risks that are available, and more importantly, understand what are the standards that a company should have. So are there certain risks that are viable? There are certain risks that are not viable. There are certain risks that you can negotiate, and there are certain risks that you cannot negotiate. You proactively bring those standards to your company. That way, the company benefits largely because all your negotiations future on becomes about those standards, right? So proactiveness, very, very important. Two, I think being diligent. Diligence means Diligent doesn't mean you have to work hard or anything of that sort. Obviously, working hard is something everyone will do because it's about putting in the hours, making sure you do your work right. But being diligent means enjoying the day to day, enjoying the monotony. For us as lawyers, our day to day is all about reviewing contracts, especially in house counsel, it's about reviewing contracts because you're always going to see contracts. You're going to see the if you have a templatized agreement which you're going to be using, you're going to see the same old comments, you're going to see the same old red lines, right? So if that is the case, enjoy doing that or learn to enjoy doing the monotony because the deals or the M&A work or the IP related work or any other work that comes up will give you more satisfaction, will give you the high that requires you to do your monotony well. That is the diligence you need to develop. You don't need to develop the diligence of going to work every day and putting in those hours and making sure you work. That isn't fun. You have to make your monotony fun, and that diligence is very important. And finally, it's about taking ownership. As young counsels, you are bound to make mistakes. I make mistakes. I have what, 8 years of experience. I know of people who have 25, 30, 40 years of experience who will make mistakes. But it's about owning up and saying, hey, I have made this error. Let's look at how to resolve it. Let's look at taking up ownership together. If you're leading a team, I've been blessed in that sense because like wherever I have had mistakes made by my end, my general counsels or my managers have always held my back, have always said, I am there to support you. You are allowed to make those mistakes, and I will take ownership for that. That level of trust that you can operate at is what makes you a better counsel. So be be very, very open to making mistakes, but be very, very open to also accepting them because that's the best way that you can develop trust with not just your manager, but with other people that you're going to be working with. So that I think would be the advice that I would give to any young lawyer who'd come up. I know it's a cliche to say these things, but it is something that holds true for me even to this day.
Wonderful tips you have shared. Uh, so we come to the end of our professional journey conversation. Uh, so, so Vignesh, we continue our next round, the personal journey round. Uh, I know it will be also very interesting. So, viewers out there, we had a lovely conversation in the professional part. So, Vignesh, uh, how was your childhood memories at CMR National Public School?
Uh, it was a very, very grueling, very tough crowd because everyone was very smart there. I felt a little bit like an fish out of the fish out of the water because it was a school that was very at the point I studied at least a large chunk of the people who studied there were very interested in moving into engineering, medicine, and more of the traditional STEM related courses, right? Uh, when I finished school, when I joined CMR, I thought I was going to be an aerospace engineer by the end of 12th grade. I want to write my IIT JEE, I want to write the IEEE and do something along those lines, right? But as a school, it was, even though a large chunk of people there went and became engineers, became scientists, became doctors, I think it wasn't a school that restricted itself to just these kind of things. It was a school that allowed you to breed your skills. It allowed you to become a more whole, whole and well-rounded individual because we did have a lot of cultural activities. It wasn't as though people who were interested in other fields weren't given the attention or weren't given the counseling. So I enjoyed being at CMR, and I think one person I would credit a large chunk of my uh, schooling experience to would be Shantwana Mukherjee, who's my English teacher. Um, she was one person who encouraged me a lot in just trying to understand whether I would fit into an engineering or a doctor or a STEM background. And she told me that, look, I don't think you're one of those people. You probably like doing civics, you like doing social sciences. Why don't you think of careers along those lines? And this was in my 11th and 12th grade. So I was doing PCMB, I was doing biology, I was planning to move from there and doing aerospace engineering and all that. And then when she told me that, I think I received the right guidance from that teacher. And I can only thank her and a few other people in my life who guided me the right way. But CMR plays a very important role there too.
So going to Ramaya College of Law, what made you join this college, and what are your memories? Because during the professional questions, you were part of the debating society. What other activities you did over there, and how did it impact you in your career?
Oh, um, to be very, very frank, joining Ramaya was a little bit of a compulsion because my parents did not want me to move out of South India to do law. And when I wrote CLAT in 2012, I got into NUJs in Calcutta, Jodhpur, and Bhopal. I couldn't get into Nalsar in Hyderabad and NLS in Bangalore. So, and I didn't want to wait for another year and write CLAT again and anything of that sort. So there were largely just a few other options in Bangalore. And Ramaya was a college that I had really heard good things about, especially because I have a sister who'd studied in Pune who had told me good things about the school. So I decided that I would join Ramaya. And it is, it's probably one of the best law schools in South India right now, for sure. But a major portion as to why it became it is such an institution and why it became much better after us, after my batches and stuff like that, is because the leadership at Ramaya was always about chasing excellence, because we always had we never had the upper hand. We were always underdogs in everything we did. So we always competed with the NLSs. We always competed with the symbiosis. We competed with the big names, right? We never stopped ourselves short and said, we'll compete with the mid-tier law schools. No, no, that was never the intention of the leadership, especially the principal who was with me. So I think that initiative that was taken up by the law school itself made us stronger. It made us feel like we were 10 steps better than most other mid-tier law schools, and we were equivalent to compare to an NLS grad or to NLS people, right? So that's one thing that I remember, because that attitude itself, when you come into a law school, which tells you that you are no less than an NLS person, that makes you feel very, very good, right? And in terms of activities that I had done, obviously debating, like I spoke to you about, was a major chunk of what I did in law school. But I also participated quite a lot in moot court activities, which is sort of like mock court activity. So done quite well. We were, I think, I was part of a team that won best memorial at a moot in Hubli. We were the finalists at the NLS negotiation competition with myself and my batchmate, both of us. We were finalists at the NLS negotiation competition, and additionally also played inter year or inter batch football, and also played university chess for some time. So a diverse set of experiences at Ramaya. So I would definitely say that, like, Ramaya was a breeding ground for a lot of the skill sets that I currently possess, and a lot of skill sets that I honed at a later stage as well.
Okay. Uh, so are you still in touch with your school friends from CMR and as well as Ramaya College?
Some of my best friends in life are from CMR. and some of my are from both actually. Some of my best friends are the so I have a set of two friends who we're called the Three Musketeers by our parents. So the three of us got married consecutively. Like I got married. So my first friend got married, then I got married, then my other friend got married. Then like we've all had fairly parallel lives, although in different fields. So one of my friends is in physics, is a chemist, sorry. One of my friends is a person who works in the um, commercial baking industry, and I'm a lawyer. So we have very diverse careers, but we all tend to talk every week. We have a chat. One of them is in the US. Both the remaining two of us are in Bangalore. So I think that's one set of friends who I got from school. And from law school, I have quite a few friends who I speak to on a regular basis for work as well as generally meet them up. But I have a really, really close friend who's now in London who's just completed his master's. So we tend to talk on a daily basis. So I think both Siamar and Ramaya have given me a very solid group of friends who I can always rely on. And to be honest, like additionally, I have to mention that I have some really incredible acquaintances from ANU who I trust implicitly in terms of a lot of advice that I get from them in terms of like law, in terms of debating, in terms of life advice. We all tend to speak about these kind of things. So I would say all of these groups of people. But just to qualify, I know this is probably a little out of the scope of
No,
your
no.
question, but I would say more than the friends that I've received there, I have also received some of the most incredible professors out of the professors and teachers out of these institutions. So, like I talked to you about my English teacher at law school, I had some of the most amazing professors who taught me the basics of law. And at ANU, I had probably some of the best stalwarts in each of their fields who taught me different aspects of law, different subjects of law that I learned. Uh, Naming them would take almost all of the time, so I don't want to do that. But like, I'd be very little, or I'd be much less knowledgeable without these people. And I think I have to credit a lot to the teachers and the professors I've had. So I know it's a little out of the scope, but I thought I should
No, no, no,
tell
no, no.
tell you about them.
See, that's why we name it the coffee conversation. So memories come भर भर के आती है and people get excited कि हमें past में लेके जा रहे हैं, present लेके जा रहे हैं, future भी लेके जा रहे हैं. So this is the beauty of the conversation where we are sitting across. It's only thing we are, if I'd been in Bangalore, I would have come down to your office, your home or cafe. We would have done it in person. Right? What we have
Absolutely,
started doing is coffee conversation in person. So we have done
absolutely,
uh, recently with at K. Singhania and Company, then Ernst and Young. So do watch
right,
those episodes. This is for everyone.
absolutely,
So it was the guest speakers were very lovely and inviting. You took a lot of efforts coming down, doing all those. See, research work is there, all those things are there, but doing in person, that has different, what do you say, memories, impact, and everything is very different. Uh,
absolutely.
so
And
whenever we
if you're
get the
ever in
chance,
Bangalore, you have to
yeah, yeah,
get a coffee.
or whenever you're in Mumbai, we would have a second round. That second round is on. We have to have a second round. So let's
For sure, for
continue.
sure.
Uh, your biggest supporter from your family?
Um, I don't want to leave anyone. So honestly, it's in terms of I'd probably allocate certain traits to each of them, so it becomes easier for me to tell who is important in which sense. I think in terms of my work ethic, it is my father because uh, my father worked in the pharmaceutical industry, started off as a junior salesperson in a small town in Tamil Nadu and started his career in 1979, worked till 2023, which was 44 years. He was in the industry, grew all the way to becoming one of the executives of a big pharmaceutical in India. I think for me, every day when I was younger, I used to see him wake up, go to office, and the things he would do when he would go to office were very interesting. Like I have seen a lot of professionals keeping their ties in a specific way. My father had a hanger where he used to have multiple spokes, and he'd keep ties rolled up in each of them so he could see which tie he wanted to wear which day and which would match to his dress, because he wanted to be so impeccably well dressed every day he went to office, because that was the best way to start his day. So for me, I find that that work ethic of going to work every day did not just involve for him that I have to go and work hard. It had to be every facet of work every day, wearing the right dress, making sure the right dress was pressed properly, going in the car, making sure the car had proper petrol, making sure the car was clean every day. Small things that not a lot of people take into account nowadays. I think that work ethic is what I've developed from my father. I think in terms of what I've developed from my mother, it would be empathy, because my father was moving around so much because it was sales, right? Sales requires you to do a lot of moving, keeps traveling a lot, right? So my dad used to be, at least in the early parts of his career and the early parts of my life, he used to be traveling at least 20-22 days in a month. I would see only my mother, and to see every day my mother with grace taking up a lot of the responsibilities of both parents, admonishing me as a father, but also loving me as a mother, taking up so many roles, but at the same time, not ever showing that she was annoyed or anything like that. She would be so empathetic to my request. She would understand why I would talk about certain things. So that empathy is something that I think I've developed from my mother. My brother, I have an elder brother who lives in the US, and from him I can tell you the one thing that I have learned is to take things at face value, never to hold grudges, never to take things as seriously as, or take things as seriously based on the requirement of the situation, never to blow things out of proportion. I think my brother has had his own unique set of experiences. And from there, I can tell you that he's probably one person that I look up to when it comes to understanding how to navigate the wild west, let's say, of the corporate world. So that's something that I think I've taken from my brother. And finally, from my wife, I think the care. It's you will, I know everyone says you have a care, we all have caring wives and all of that, but I'm also blessed to have a very caring wife who every day takes care of her own needs, her own passions, her own work stresses, etc., but at the same time never brings those things to our table, has conversations with me as though she wants to hear about things that she cares about. She's not a lawyer, she's a software engineer, doesn't have an idea of what I do, but still wants to hear about my day, understand my day. I think I'm truly blessed to have wonderful set of parents, a great brother, and a great wife as well. So very inspired by these people.
So God bless you. Uh, Vignesh, you have been to so many different countries and worked over there. So tell us something about which food you liked over there and which places did you visit?
I can tell you the most recent one, which I really loved, which was Italy. We had it was part of our company offsite, so we'd all gone to Italy last year, and it was beautiful. We went to the countryside in Florence, and it was an amazing experience. And especially because my favorite cuisine also is Italian, so I had a gala time, like going through Italian restaurants in Rome, in Florence, and the countryside. It was beautiful just getting through all of these foods. And I would say I'm more of a mountain kind of person. So I really liked being in Italy, especially the places we went. because it was beautiful, and I'd always want to go back to the countryside of Italy. And if you ask me, India, my favorite place is obviously going to be Ooty, because driving down from Bangalore to Ooty is probably one of my most favorite pleasures. So I just prefer to drive down to Ooty, just relax for a few days, come back. It's the best detox anyone can ask for.
That's very interesting. Uh, my next question will be, so many things happen, changes. So how do you keep abreast regarding for your legal professional world? And now you started adding more hats for the marketing, for HR. So how do you keep yourself updated?
Uh, um, I think the only way I can think of why I'm always on the pursuit of betterment is because um, I've always learned that it's very important to just be hungry for knowledge. So you should, for me, I've always been a child for knowledge. So I've always tried to learn new things every day. I pretty much confuse the YouTube algorithm that I have, because I watch like different varieties of videos. So my YouTube algorithm is so confused that it gives me recommendation from across the world. So the idea is to just be a child for knowledge, just like understand that you are here for whenever you're taking up a profession, you're here to learn, and you're here to just contribute to that profession. So the more and more you learn, the more you're able to contribute. So I think that is the best way. And methods by which you would do that is, obviously, I try my best to read at least 50 to 60 books a year, at least 50 to 60 books a year. And with regard to keeping up with the law, reading the news, understanding the news, and also keeping abreast with academic writing. So generally try and read academic work, keep myself abreast with court cases in India and a few important pieces of legislation abroad as well, and court cases abroad as well. So that's the method. But if you ask me the reason, it's just trying to keep the inner child in you alive. That's the motivation, I would say.
Which is your favorite book you like to read again and again?
Oh, slightly controversial choice, but I absolutely love reading 1984. It's just one of my favorite books to read. George Orwell's 1984 is one of my favorite books. Additionally, if you want me to slightly give you a more positive oriented book, I think reading a lot of Enid Blinton helped me. So I understand, like, moving from moving from 1984 to Enid Blinton is quite a stretch, but I really love reading all of these children's novels. It helps me, like, just like forget about all the stresses, and it's a wonderful way to just de-stress a lot of ways. And I still read them, so I
Wow.
have no shame in saying I read these small cutie novels. It's very helpful.
So how many books do you have in your collection?
Ooh, right now, I think about 180 books, but I keep recycling them. So I keep sending out books to a few of the book clubs that are around my house. So I tend to give older books that I've already read, or books that I don't no longer feel that I want to read again. I just give it off to book clubs and
Wow.
libraries around. But if you ask me now, about 180 books with about 100 odd novels and 80 odd law books.
What are your plans or future plans for opening a library?
No, no, no. Too much, too difficult to maintain.
In your retirement.
I mean, I probably give away all my books to a library and just go sit in the library. I don't think I would be in a position to, like. I think I'm happy to just have those solid 200 books which I can recycle over and over and just use those books. But I would never really try to maintain a library. It's too much work. My mother used to maintain a library for an organization, and I know how tough it is. I wouldn't want to do it myself.
Yeah, yeah. So are you be part of see I'm also part of book clubs in Bombay, different book clubs. So I've seen there are many activities besides book clubs they do. So what kind of different activities in Bangalore they are doing?
To be honest, I'm a little out of touch in the last few years, but till about 2, 3 years ago, at least before COVID, is when I used to go to a lot of book clubs. I would say we would do a lot of book readings together. We'd have, especially for younger kids, we'd do book summary competitions. We'd also do a lot of fancy dress competitions, especially for all of these fantasy novels, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, all of those kind of things. There'd be really cute stuff that we used to do, especially in our society. We used to do a lot of things, but after COVID, it has slowed down a little bit. I think we should start it again. Now, this is good initiative for me to start something here as well.
Yeah. I've been part where we've gone for this movie screenings of big movies during this Christmas. Saw a good movie on ye, uh, I don't recollect the name. There is a book also. I'll send you that book link. Buy that book. See that movie. It's on this Apple iTunes. Very beautiful
Oh,
movie. Uh,
oh,
we get to
let me
see
know.
movies also. I've gone for walks also.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so many
Interesting.
new things. Now the book clubs have added, and the members also have different, what do you say, interest. So the book clubs have added new dimensions besides
Oh,
swapping books, book exchange, book summaries, all those. But physical activities have increased a lot.
I probably should join some to just see how these things have improved, because it's been a while, to be honest. I have to probably just get back to it.
Yeah, you should. That there are very silent book clubs also in Bangalore.
Right. Okay. I probably have to check them out, but this is
Yeah.
good for me to do it.
Reconnect. That's
Yes.
yeah. So now coming to my last question or a lovely conversation, we'll have to continue, but due to time constraints, we have to keep in mind. Uh, Describe Vignesh in one line.
I'd say I'm an ambitious, diligent business counsel uh, on the professional front, and a caring family man on the personal front.
That's wonderful. So friends, we had a lovely conversation, knowing about his personal journey, about the professional journey. Now we are coming to the last round. That is the rapid fire round. So Vignesh, you have to answer very quickly because it's
Okay.
rapid fire. Uh, yeah. Favorite tourist place?
Italy,
Food dish.
dosa,
Okay. I thought you said pizza because
dosa.
okay. Yeah. Uh, Three apps which you can't live without.
WhatsApp, Outlook, and Teams.
Okay. Uh, any uh, TV or movie related to law?
Ooh, I'd say To Kill a Mockingbird, excellent book, excellent movie, and Philadelphia, one of my favorites.
Okay. Your favorite quote?
Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, Muhammad Ali.
Wow. Uh, if you had three things with you, reading a book, or you have this music app, or you've got three choices basically.
Mhm.
One is reading a book, listening to music, or outdoor activity. Which one would you prefer to do?
Listening to music any day.
Okay. So your favorite music, can you please share?
Oh, always, it will never change. SP Balasubramanian.
Wow. So Vignesh, you did a wonderful answering the questions. So friends, it was a lovely conversation we had with Vignesh. He went down memory lanes and many tips he has shared. So people who are lawyers who want to become a successful legal counsel, do watch this episode. It It will be available on the YouTube channel, The Coffee Corner Show. We look forward to another interesting coffee conversation with another speaker. Stay tuned and happy weekend.